necessity is the mother of invention, right? When you need something is when you then grow into becoming the solution. I was like, okay, I'm not on the level with these people. And I remember just literally in the Uber back weeping. Become the person that people talk to and then feel imposter syndrome.
Oh,
I'm not a bad person.
Oh,
I'm not a bad person, guys. I'm sorry. I'm a big believer in brainwashing yourself, especially just because things can be so distracting. So if you aren't constantly feeding yourself with where you're trying to go, you'll start hearing other things, and it might not fully take you away, but it will at least dilute you. At the very minimum, that might look like someone being like, "Oh, Melody, come on, chill. Like, you know, you studied hard today. Come out with us this evening or whatever." That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, but it is reducing your intensity.
Hey family, and welcome back to today's episode of Building Your Better You, a space where we stop surviving and start growing intentionally, a space where we embrace growth to be our lifestyle. If that sounds like you and you want to rise above autopilot and embrace the version of you that is waiting to shine, then this podcast is for you. And I'm sure this episode will deposit in you mindset shifts, strategies, and lessons that you can apply and take along on your journey of building a better you. Let's get right into it, shall we? Ladies and gentlemen, we have Melody here with us today. Who is Melody, you may ask me? Melody was born in Nigeria, but grew up in Aberdeen. She graduated from the London School of Economics. She started her career as an investment banker in JP Morgan, London's office, working on M&A for financial institutions. She now works as a venture capitalist, investing in tech startups across Africa. Outside of work, she enjoys musing over philosophical topics and hiking.
Hey everyone.
How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
It's like day 2 of the new year and we're here. We thank God.
Love it.
Before we get right into it, I'm going to do a couple of icebreakers.
Okay, fun.
If you could live in any city in the world for a year, where would it be and why?
I think maybe an Asian city.
Okay.
Maybe like Tokyo or...
Okay.
Oh no, New York.
I was going to say...
Sorry, I don't know what I was doing.
I was going to say, when I was making it up, I was like, Molly's going to say New York.
Yeah.
Because we had a conversation where you've always wanted to live
Exactly,
in New York.
yeah. I think just bucket list,
Okay.
right? It's not somewhere for a long term. You said a year.
Yeah.
So a year, feel the intensity. I'd love it in, my earlier years of life.
Why New York?
I think because I love London.
Okay.
And to what I understand, New York is like London on steroids.
Right, okay. So you want that vibe.
Yeah, I think it's good for you. Yeah.
Okay, next question. What's the most unexpected thing that's happened to you while traveling?
Oh, maybe recently.
Okay.
Oh, there's so many things.
I know.
Okay. Yeah, maybe a recent one that just top of mind. On the way back from my recent trip, I was sat next to a political criminal from Iran who has been exiled and
Oh my goodness.
can't return
Shut up.
forever. So yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, he was telling me all about it.
You were like, oh, was he sitting next to you?
Yeah, literally. Yeah.
Right.
So we sat down. He was like, he just started talking about himself. So he was asking me questions about me, and then I was like, what about you? And he's like, well, I've not been to my home country of Iran in 30 years. I was like, why? He's like, because I've been exiled. I was like, right. So
That's
yeah,
good to know.
long
Nice
story
to meet
short,
you.
not to expose his whole story, but he did something. He spoke against the government.
Okay.
And he's just not allowed to return. He basically was fled as a refugee.
Oh, right.
He spent 5 years traveling across like Pakistan, a bunch of Asia, trying to find asylum before ultimately finding asylum in Amsterdam, which is sort of where he's now lived. And he's been able to build a life. He's got a family. He's got an amazing job. He now travels a lot as well. So yeah, amazing story
Everywhere
of like...
but Iran, though, in his travel.
Yeah, and I think now he's obviously at a point in his life, like 50, 60, where he's, he's been everywhere apart from home. And I think... Yeah,
it's that point where it's like, oh.
Yeah, he like sort of regrets it and wishes he could go back. But
oh no.
Yeah, that's been the most surprising.
That's so interesting. So what happens if you like step back? Will they just like?
Yeah, it would not be good for him.
Gosh.
He'd
Never
not
thought
be good
about
for
how
him.
that would I don't want to try it. Okay, next question. What's a skill or hobby, since it's a new year, that you want to pick up this year? I don't know if you thought about it.
Oh gosh.
Anything. Doesn't have to be deep.
New skill or hobby. Oh, I think crocheting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
I've seen you crochet in one of your videos, right?
knitting.
No, knitting.
Exactly.
I see.
So a lot of my hobbies are very restful.
Okay.
So I've been knitting for actually a really long time. And then I picked up paint by gems.
Okay.
This is very unique.
Oh, I've
but
heard that. Is that the ones that you pop the gems?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. I picked up paint by gems. So these are very mindful hobbies. And then I realized, crocheting, like as a new realm, you can sort of create different things.
Okay.
So yeah, I might pick up crocheting.
Okay. Is that all in the restful vibe?
Exactly.
Is that because you're just so busy?
Yeah, like I've never been convinced by narrative of social media being a restful. Like when people are like, "Oh, I just want to take my mind off stuff," I'm like, "No,
take
very
your phone down.
very stimulating."
Yeah.
So yeah, my brain does well with these like very quiet. Have a little like jazz in the background, and you just do that for like 15 minutes, and life is better.
It's better. Reset. Okay. And finally, what's a quote you're currently meditating on, or like your favorite quote off the top of your head, one that rolls off your tongue?
Quote. I think there's probably one that's gonna be business related. Oh yeah. So one that someone said to me recently is the connecting dots one. So I believe I want to say it's Steve Jobs, might not be. Maybe he just requoted it.
Okay.
But the dots only connect looking backwards. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Which is the whole idea that, like, I guess in general, like where you are is accumulation of the things you've done previously. So even while maybe this current step looks rogue, it looks like this is not in line to where I've been going, you don't know that maybe 3 steps ahead, that step will be reflective of the combination of those things you've done before.
Yeah.
So yeah, the dots connecting, looking back.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into it. So, who is Melody? If you were to, obviously, I read your bio. I've got a bit of idea of who Melody is, but personally, how would you
describe Melody? Okay, well, firstly, Melody's Christian. Melody is someone who's been saved by the grace of God, and her life is, planned by God. The steps are ordained. And what that looks like right now, I would say, is, growing and developing and navigating life. Something I was discussing with a friend, I feel like adulting, like, if you think about, yes, okay, you can be like, I'm 23, I'm 25 or whatever right now. But really, like, how many years have you been, like, a fully independent adult? Probably not that many. Like, in terms of adult years, you're an infant. So, yeah.
There's so much ahead.
Right? So, yeah, I think, like, I'm an infant. I'm an infant adult who is navigating and deciding how she wants her life to look like, and who's very cognizant of the fact that these are very formative years. So I would say I'm quite intense. I don't really see life as that chill, and I see every decision I make as it will have consequences. And so I try to be mindful. And I would say that I'm someone who's sort of looked into self-help, who's looked into consequences of actions from quite a young age, I would say, like early teenagehood.
Okay.
And yeah, that sort of shaped how I've made decisions. And right now, I work predominantly in finance. I'm an investor. But other than that, I like sharing my thoughts. I like creating. I like influencing, actually. And I think someone, who was it?
Many people don't like that word, But...
Right. But I think people need to embrace it more. And there was someone who, I don't know if someone from church, actually, but someone was talking about how actually everyone is an influencer.
In some sort,
And I think I saw that at some point, maybe when I was like in uni, where I realized that there were actually younger people who were messaging me, who were like, oh, who you could tell that they looked up to me in some way. And then I realized, hold on, whether I like it or not, I am influencing. So I can either take a proactive role in that, where I'm conscious about what I'm sharing and talking. So that's another part of myself as well.
Okay, I love it. So going back to your early years and like early journey, if you want to call it that, had you always been that person that was like, I know what I want to do, there's no time for play, no time for this because it's going to have consequences, or did it just come in adulthood? Yeah,
the way my life and childhood was set up, I was in a position where I grew up quickly.
Okay.
And I felt ownership over not only my life but my family's life.
Absolutely.
And I understood that my life would affect my family's life. So I just was like, hold on, Melody, don't play. Because I think I almost saw consequences of people playing. And I was like, well,
I see what you mean.
I'd rather not play. So yeah, I have been that person from quite a young age. I say that laughing because I think we do see discourses, especially on social media, about childhood and, you know, people not really embracing, like maybe not having a childhood per se, and having to grow up quickly. You know, I see both sides, but I'm personally grateful for those challenges because I really do think they set me up. I wouldn't want to be a 23-year-old who thought her life was a joke. I think some people who maybe didn't have to grow up in that way do enter 23 still thinking life is a joke. And then you sort of get, when they turn 30 tends to be the pivotal point. And, you know, we saw that this year where every 30-year-old was picking up running, for example, where they're like, health is important. But if you have that switch earlier on, it's just better.
I do think about that sometimes because I feel like I can relate in that sense of growing up quickly. I don't know if it's a first generation thing, you know, having Nigerian parents. Perhaps. And like, being the first to grow up, I guess, in this soil and having the opportunities that you have. And I guess being the firstborn as well.
That too.
But
eldest daughters unite.
But I think looking forward, and I mean, we're not going to talk about kids or anything now, but I'm grateful for the experience. And I'm grateful for the awareness that it gave me. But I don't know if I want my children to experience the same thing. But at the same time, I want them to experience the pros of it, if that makes sense. I was watching Patricia Wright's podcast the other day, and she was like, a little trauma is good for them.
Word.
It's like we look down on trauma, but like this little traumas is actually, I guess, kind of whipped you in shape.
Yes.
In time for you being like, you know,
exactly. No, 100%. I think Barbara Concaran, I think she did a podcast, I want to say with Diary of CEO, and she said something very similar where I think he must have suggested that she goes to therapy or something because she was talking about her traumas. And she was like, no, I don't want them to fix me. She was like...
I like me this way.
Right? She's like, if they fix me, I'm gonna, you know, plateau or I would never be where I was if I had healed.
Which is like crazy. Like, don't heal, let's just go. But it's like... I guess it's the mercies of the Lord that it turns out into a positive way.
100%.
If that makes sense. Because obviously there are many people that have gone through maybe similar experiences and it went completely left.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think it's, you know, our challenge will be curating little experiences that grow our kids without exposing them to massive traumas.
Without making them go to therapy. Like, we don't want to do that. But we want you to like grow up. Because I think, like you say, I think most people, and which is one of the reasons why this podcast is, or this conversation is at the moment, it's like you don't have that realization until much later. And it's like there's so many years that you've missed on in how you could have done better. And it's like, it's not in the big things. And some people think, oh, I have to have this in place, have that in place. But I guess in our conversation, hopefully you can reveal that it's also in the daily habits and in these little decisions. Because like you say, you wouldn't have gotten here at 23 without years of like
1,000,000% not
self-help facts that you read, you know, when you were younger.
Exactly.
So it's just little things that then, you know, feed into your better you today and what you're doing today. Also, by the time you're 30, by the grace of God, you'd have, you know, gone in leaps and bounds as well.
But I have a hot take.
I love a hot take.
I think there's a certain type of person who undergoes these things that will grow them.
Okay.
Because there's a certain type of person who sees it as necessary.
Okay.
So, like, there's a quote, necessity is the mother of invention, right? When you need something is when you then grow into becoming the solution, right?
Okay.
And if you think about like your behaviors and stuff, it comes out of who you are as a person identity. The advantage that we have, you know, yes, we went through challenges and traumas and stuff like that, but those became advantages because we went through this stuff in our formative years where it has shaped who we are today. I want to converse that with someone who's maybe grew up very either spoiled or cushioned or whatever. If they were to now decide, oh yeah, you know, I need to get my life in order, they don't have that identity. That is an upward battle of changing your mindset because it's past, you know, just, you know, neurology and stuff like that. It's past the point where your brain is the most malleable. Like, to people like us, this is the way our brain is wired.
The brain plasticity has happened already.
Exactly. And of course, we are totally growth mindset over here. And we do believe people can change. But I do think it's worth acknowledging that it might be harder for someone who's not been accustomed from that at an earlier age when those habits were easier to form, if that makes sense.
Right.
And I think
you can't just up in your 20s, in the middle of adulthood.
it would be harder. And I think the message for whoever's listening, regardless of whatever stage you're at, is to, one, be cognizant of how difficult it might be, but two, to almost have some urgency or haste with it and say, actually, let me start now. Let me not think about it when I'm 27, 28. 'Cause, you know, like, I actually was watching a TikTok even just yesterday where it was like somebody was encouraging someone to do dry January.
Okay.
And the person's response was, I'm 24, I'm not doing dry January, I'll do it when I'm 30. Right? But what they're not understanding there is that, no, it's now, probably before your frontal lobes develop or whatever, where you want to be trying those challenges, not 30 when things are a lot more set in stone or harder. So
that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think it helps me actually give grace, because sometimes I'm like, why are you behaving like that?
Yes, exactly.
Do you know what I mean? But like you said, everybody's experience is so different. I was saying to someone the other day, like someone next to my work, just opened up a business. I went to speak to her, and she's like 21.
Slay.
But I'd only seen her in like the last, like, because they renovated the place and whatnot.
Okay.
So I had seen her dad the whole time, and I was saying to my colleagues, I was like, that could never be me. In terms of like her dad helped her to establish
setting it up.
everything.
Okay.
And she kind of just came towards the end. And I spoke to her, and I could tell from the way she was speaking that she probably didn't have much involvement in this, but she's been given that platform to like, you know. So I was just thinking, like, you know, in terms of that, like her upbringing would have probably been completely different to mine. So she probably, like you said, wouldn't have had much of that need or necessity to be better for any reason, because I guess you already, have all these things, you know. So giving grace to different backgrounds, but also balancing it with that you still have the power to make those changes sooner rather than later if you wish to, but just understand that maybe for some people it's going to be harder, and for others it might just be that I just need to be surviving this life and not be the same as my parents, you know. So giving grace in that is quite interesting. But looking on your early experiences as well, do you think that because of that you've had to make a lot of sacrifices, or would you not see them as sacrifices? Would you see them as just
good
another
question
thing of life? Like, this is just what my livelihood has been.
You know, I think it's still worth seeing it for what it is. Yes, indeed, sacrifices were made. Whether, I think for me, there's actually a particular year in general, and it's funny because I like people in our church community or whatever, and saw it, and they were like, you know, Melody's a ghost right now, like, you know, nobody really sees her since we talk 21. So I think there was a year in particular where I think I probably did the most growth in discipline, in sort of having that mindset. It was in, I think, my second year of school, second last year of high school, doing my hires, where I had taken an extra subject, and so I had to teach myself it, like, because it didn't fit in the schedule. And I just had to be proper locked in, basically. And at the same time, I was also working like 6 jobs or whatever. In the summer, it was crazy. That time for me, like that was a time where I think about sacrifices. At that time, you know, everyone's having parties or whatever.
Just about to finish secondary school.
Exactly, right? You know, we're 16-ish, 17-ish. Like, it's a time where we're sort of finding our own feet and people are doing stuff. And I had to I was like, I had to make a decision, like, cool, am I going to be the person who's like outside and people see her, or do I have a vision outside of this? And I did. I had a vision outside of this. You mentioned my bio that I went to London for university. For me, getting to university took abnormal work compared to the average. And so it was choosing the future over now. I see those sacrifices as, they are sacrifices, because of course those are good things for teenagers to do. You know, you should be doing those things. But they paid massive dividends. I would go back and do the exact thing over again. I'd probably go harder. And I would advise anyone who's in similar shoes to take that same path as well.
Interesting. Yeah. Again, thinking about like playing in your youthful years, when you have, because when I look back on, I was saying to my friend, when I look back on uni time, I'm like, what was I doing in my life? Because I felt like I had so much, like looking back to school or to uni, I had so much time, and I tried to be wise with my time to a certain degree, but some people would say like, that's when I'm young, like that's when I should be that's when I should be living life. Like, what would you say to finding that balance? Do you think it's not the time to be living life? Is there a balance that can be found? Or, do you know what I mean? How did you how did you get to that conclusion? And I think coming back to having a vision is so important. I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
I guess at the end of the day, seeing what you want and having a vision. But do you think it should always be at the cost of your play?
Right. If your vision is indeed one of balance today, like, look, I want to be a hard worker and I want to play hard, you can achieve that. You need to have a vision and decide what it takes. Once you know the cost, that is it.
Absolutely.
You know, like, you pay the cost. You don't, you know, the Bible verse that tells you, like, you don't plan a building and then you don't know what it costs, right? Know what it costs and then execute. That's it. For me, the vision that I had did not have space to play. It didn't at all. But I think there are definitely visions that are totally worth living, that are beautiful. People will live those lives and have amazing lives that do involve play. So I think it's all about you deciding what you want to do. At the same time, I think you need to understand how you work. So let's say somebody wants to be like me and it's like, go, 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 hit those targets and overachieve. Do you understand yourself? Like, some people, you know, they actually need play to work. If that's you, then do that. Do whatever it takes, or find smarter ways. So I think for me, like, you know, I was very conscious, okay, I really need to keep up on my relationships while I'm working or whatever. So it's, okay, maybe in times when I'm in commutes, when I'm walking, when I'm taking a break, using that to call a friend, to see a friend, right? Finding smart ways of fitting in the things that are important to you. I think that's balance. But I will also say that I'm also a big person in the camp that I've sort of seen people talking about, where for some goals you can't have balance. Like, if you're wanting, for example, if you want to build a really big business from scratch, work-life balance is not your portion right now. In the short to medium term, perhaps it probably isn't. You need to look at people who are where you're going and see what they did to get there. And it's probably unlikely that they had balance. I don't know.
Very unlikely. Reminds me of a conversation I was listening to, actually. I think 𝐿𝐸 was talking about that on his podcast. And he was talking about, you know, some of the work he had to put in to be able to get his YouTube channel and his business to where it's at. And he was saying something about, like, you know, like, if you can't put in at least, like, he said, if you put in 30 minutes daily, like, you're playing kind of thing.
You are. It's a hobby. It's a side hustle.
Yeah, that's literally what he said. He said, if you put in 30 minutes into this thing that you're trying to build per day, then it's a hobby. Like, it's a side hustle. And it hit me like, damn. And he'd said, you know, and someone, you know, caveated what I just mentioned in terms of, like, how do you then balance the rest of life? And he's like, at the cost of what you want. Like, what do you actually want out of this? You know, like, if you want to build a really big business or something that's profitable, then that's the cost that you have to be. Like, you can't exactly have your cake and eat it too. Like, if you're going to do the minimal work, and it's not minimal work, actually, it's like,
it's hard. It's hard.
Actually hard work. But if you're going to choose that step, then don't be surprised at the results that you get. You know? So I think back to the vision is so important, because I think sometimes when I'm also trying to speak to someone, there's only so much you can speak to if they don't have vision because there's only so much convincing you can do. If they already don't have a trajectory for their lives, it's you're just knocking at a hard
And if
wall.
they're not married to it as well. That's
married
the thing.
to it is such a good term. Like,
no.
Hug it.
Yeah.
If you
Like,
reach this point in the video, then you are a champion. You're committed to building a better version of yourself, and you're investing the time and seeking the knowledge required to do so. And I've got just the right tool to accompany you on this journey of becoming better. And that's none other than the Better Days Journal, a journal that was created with you and your best days in mind. Each entry offers the opportunity for growth, for reflection, for gratitude, and everything you need to maximize a single day. In its pages, you find prompts that help you pause and learn from the lessons of each day. Remember, it's in how we spend each day that creates the future we desire. So here's to better days. Here's to building your better you, one reflection at a time. You can grab your copy at DMY&x or any of the links linked in the description box below.
Especially in our social media age, people can be sold visions quite easily. One day it's this aesthetic, this era, this, we love to have so many words for it, right? But which are distracting. That's why I'm mentioning it. So if you have a vision that you're locked in on, that you're married to, that come rain or shine, this is my vision, that's when it's gonna work. Because otherwise, then you're gonna hear soft girl trend. Yeah. And you're like, oh, and you're seeing it as well. They're the messaging. It's hypnotizing. It's brainwashing. Oh wow, I really want to be in those tennis skirts or whatever.
Yeah.
I want to be spending X, Y, and Z. And you forgot that you told people that you were married to the game of saving money for that house, saving money for your retirement or whatever. You need a vision and you need to be locked in.
Do you think you're still at the same intensity now, or do you think that now that you've seen some sort of results?
Oh my gosh. This is such a good topic because I felt like last year, 2 years ago, I felt like my ambition had died. Because I think for up until maybe from ages of 14, 15 till that was like 19, 20, my identity was output. And like that was my perception to myself and my perception, like other people perceiving me. But I remember, so at this point, I was just about graduating and about to enter my job or whatever. And I had been crushing things really, like there was an ease to my life. Like this is not to brag or anything, but this is just to show the state that I was in. I already had my full-time job secured from like a year and a half before. And I applied to this internship in real estate private equity to do, just to try it out. And I forgot about it. Like I didn't put it in my calendar. And then like on the day, like an email thing pops up and I'm like, oh, I'm going to have this interview. And I went in there, no prep, nothing, just sort of like, making stuff up and forming stuff, just trying my best. But, it was low stakes. Like, I have my job. I won't cry about it. And I remember they called me the next day to give me the job. And not only that, but like I actually rejected it. I was like, actually, there's another internship I'm going to do instead. Like, they called me being like, no, I spoke to one of the MDs and they really want you. You were the top performer in the interviews. Wow. Like, that was for context as to like where I was in my life, in the work that I'd done before was paying dividends like that things were happening with ease. And I kind of felt I didn't have another high goal after that. And I kind of felt like I don't have an ambition. So that is to say that, and this conversation I still need to think about and flesh out, but it's to say that there are times when your ambition might fall when you have hit, especially if your goals are maybe only 5 years in the future. When you enter that 5 years, you might plateau a little bit. I think right now my ambitions have been rekindled because I've entered into a new field.
I feel you.
Yeah, like I'm now in a slightly different field of venture capital. So there are now new things that I can look to. And also now going from like early to mid 20s. Yes, there are now different goals as well.
Absolutely. Like you're speaking my mind here, and I think when you start young as well, it's so easy to like feel that way, because I had that season as well. I guess when you're just coming out of school, when you get your job, your first job. I got my first property. I got married. So there are things that like you have your savings built up. So at some point it feels like, especially depending on your environment, which we'll come to, it feels like, oh, actually, like, okay, there's certain things that you've ticked right now. So it's like, what else is next? And you feel yourself kind of going plateau.
Coasting, yes.
Yeah. But then, like you say, and I guess it goes back to your vision at the end of the day and what was driving you in the beginning. You're like, actually, I'm only this age, or I only have this, I have so much time left. And it's a case of, okay, there's these things that you, I guess, dreamt of in terms of achieving now, but then there are moments where you would have to revisit that and like rekindle yourself again, exactly, with new visions, with new dreams, with new industries, because that's when I feel like when you even if you step into these visions that I guess that you are putting down, when you are in them, it's easy to coast. So you always have to, like, it never stops, basically, is what I'm trying to get at. Like, you always have to keep challenging yourself, keep growing, keep putting yourself in positions that keep you on your toes if you want to keep getting better and keep growing. If not, it might look like you're at the better, but if there's no consistent moving, then it's kind of like stable. But going to environments, I knew obviously you grew up in Aberdeen or Scotland, should I say, the smaller parts of the United Kingdom. How did you balance, your environment? Because obviously maybe not everybody, like you said, it was abnormal work back then. Not everyone, you probably didn't see a lot of people with the same drive or with the vision that you had. How much do you think environment plays, now looking back, into that? Do you think if you were somewhere else, it would have been different? Or do you think it was just something that was fully innate?
No. Would never be so prideful. No, environment, 100%. We are literally just the product of our environments. I think we are living in a very fortunate age where you can create synthetic environments. And I think that is exactly what I did. Absolutely. And I think that's one of the biggest things that got me to where I was, where I basically just lived virtually
Wow.
somewhere else, if that makes sense. So I created a, I guess, online bubble of what I was trying to do. So practically what that looked like, if anyone's in this same stage of life, is like when I was studying, for example, in my study breaks, the only thing I would consume was study vlogs.
Right.
It was no shows, nothing to take my mind off.
Yeah.
It was watching people doing the same thing that I'm trying to do.
Right.
In the same way, when I was trying to get into investment banking, I would watch whatever there was about people who are investment bankers, who are working finance or whatever.
Right. So that's what you kept seeing.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in brainwashing yourself, especially just because things can be so distracting. So if you aren't constantly feeding yourself with where you're trying to go, you'll start hearing other things, and it might not fully take you away, but it will at least dilute you. At the very minimum, that might look like someone being like, "Oh, Melody, come on, chill. Like, you know, you studied hard today. Come out with us this evening or whatever." That's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing, but it is reducing your intensity a little bit.
Right.
If you don't have it physically, surrounding yourself with a virtual community, it can elevate you further in sense of, okay, you're doing this right now, but maybe in that video that you're watching, in that post that you're reading, in that blog post or whatever, you're learning about, okay, I could be doing more, X, Y, Z.
Right.
Environment cannot be overstated.
That is so good.
We need it to grow. Yeah.
That is so good, because I think when I think of environment, I only think of the physical, and then I'm sure people can agree here where you're like, okay, I'm not surrounded by that, or all of my friends think this way, or this is the only opportunities that is available to me in my space. But like you say, I think we're living in a time where virtually you can create
a whole world.
Yeah, like if you watch a certain thing on YouTube
enough times,
enough times, that is all YouTube will suggest to you. And I think that's so key, because even when I think about, you know, my next goals and stuff, I find that it's the times where I'm locked into consuming such content that's all I'm like thinking about. That's all you see, you know, and you're like, you created that, I guess,
echo chamber.
Yeah. You got a video on this before having. Yeah, you create the echo chamber where you're like, that's all you're hearing, that's all you're seeing, and it's like it's driving you. Yeah. And I think that's so important. I think it helps, because sometimes I wonder if the lack of, you know, physical environment can be people's excuse, but with creating a synthetic one,
you really can. Yeah. And, you know, we don't want to act like it's easy and stuff like that, but there is a way out. I think about it also with especially people's, like, I see this a lot with people's physical goals, like people who maybe are going on a massive weight loss journey for health or whatever. They will always talk about how it was changing their virtual environment, because typically their physical environment will be very conducive to the habit that they're trying to deviate from, whether that is other people with bad eating habits or food literally around. So yeah, they can find that respite, that solution online, virtually. So yeah, we should all tap into it. It's really important.
Absolutely. So now that you've grown, like when you've left the environment and you're now in these spaces of, I guess, finding more people that are like more like-minded, like you know, working in a high pressured school or workplace, did you ever face like imposter syndrome? I
did, not in university, but in at work. So when I first started, so for context, as Dami said, I started my career in mergers and acquisitions in investment banking. That role is known for being quite competitive, very low rates of success, and once you get in, it is extremely intense. And it was almost like, I think, you know, you work so hard to get somewhere, and then that place still requires so much more from you that you're like, oh, I just
I just got in.
I felt, you feel like you kind of only just made the cut to get in, which is, you know, lies. And then, you know, there's so much more for me to do. So a moment that I can point to was the day before, or maybe 2 days before my internship was meant to start. So it starts on a Monday, and I think on Saturday our team invited us out to meet for drinks or whatever. And on that Saturday was when I was meeting the other interns in my team for the first time. So seeing them eye to eye, and then we were all sort of navigating this environment of meeting our new future colleagues, mingling, getting to know them. In that moment was really tough, because I got to see my competition face to face, and I was the least.
Wow.
Like, I could see that visibly. Firstly, also just age. So I think I was about, like, in my team, I think I was like 3-4 years younger than anyone else.
Wow.
So I was definitely the youngest to start, but even just the way they carried themselves, the topics they were able to hold, everything, I was like, okay, I'm not on the level with these people. And I remember just literally in the Uber back weeping.
Wow.
Like absolutely sobbing. I was like, wow, I got here just to fail. Because so the goal of the internship is to do well enough to get invited to come back.
Right.
And I was like, they're not going to invite me to come back because everyone else is better than me. So I think I had a form of imposter syndrome there where I was like, damn, everyone else at the standard, maybe I got in by mistake. I shouldn't be here. But I think for me, maybe because of my previous experiences, family encouraging me, I just decided that the only way is for me to rise to the occasion.
Yeah.
Like I just had to work harder than everyone else. And I think that's literally what I did to turn that situation around. I just put in more work than other people. I stayed a little bit longer. I tried to distinguish myself in some way. Yeah.
Did you face that in LSE?
No, honestly,
Really?
not in uni. And I'm thinking, okay, why did I not?
Because I'm thinking the school and obviously just even the city that you were coming from and just moving straight into London, you're like, you should be exposed to so many more.
Right? I think because I wasn't.
Okay. So I guess because you had already leveled yourself above.
Yes. Of course, at LSE, there were a ton of people better than me. Majority of people were better than me, whether academically, and they excelled so much more. But I think I proved to not be an imposter because of other things I did.
Okay.
So from day dot, I was active.
Okay.
Like, so I remember like in my second year, people like Meldy's become like a big name on campus essentially.
Right, okay.
So I went in immediately and I was running for roles of responsibility, doing XYZ, leadership roles in societies. So I think that helped to combat any imposter syndrome beforehand.
Okay.
And sorry, look, she invited someone who's going to have hot takes and say things are not politically correct. But I think something I did was become the person that people talk to and then feel imposter syndrome.
Oh,
I'm not a bad person.
I'm
not a bad person, guys. I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness, Melody. That was a hot take. And you know what? I'm gonna pause there quickly and actually read what Google says about imposter syndrome so that we get a better context. So imposter syndrome is a feeling of inadequacy or fraudulence that can occur in many situations. So people with imposter syndrome may attribute their success to luck or external factors, believe that they're not worthy of praise or recognition, fear of being found out or exposed as incompetent, avoid high-level tasks or demanding tasks, or dismiss positive feedback. So in this situation, you're saying that you wanted to be so good that the other person felt like the imposter.
Because if you think about any times that you would have felt imposter syndrome, or if you can imagine, it's going to be when you observe other people and you feel like they're at a level higher than you, right? So you can just reverse engineer that. Who would I need to become that if I was to be observed, somebody would feel like that person is levels above me?
Wow.
And I think that's what I did, not intentionally. I don't even think I did it in that way, but if I look back and ask myself, why did I feel imposter syndrome starting work but not LSE,
right? And
I dissected. I think it's because
you started off on
I started off so high. I think in my first year I did like 10 different roles, responsibilities / activities or whatever. That when it came to second year and people were starting to apply for stuff, and I was like, oh, Maddie, what are you putting on your CV? And I'm like, oh, I have a ton of things to put on my CV, and they didn't.
Right.
I think there's a difference. So for anyone who's trying, either facing it or trying to prevent it, I would suggest preventing rather than curing. How can you go above and beyond? And in general, like, that's always my messaging for whenever people ask me how to get into LSE or get into investment banking. It's, don't just try and get in. How do you set yourself up that it's like, obviously you're going to get in.
Wow.
Obviously you're going to do it. And I think if you run your life like that, you're probably going to minimize imposter syndrome in lots of things. Not just, okay, how do I make sure I'm doing stuff the other 23-year-olds, 25-year-olds are doing? How do I do more? You just avoid the feeling completely.
That's so interesting. I think in situations like LSE, there are things that you can, how do I put it? What's the word? predetermined, like in
Defined,
terms of
it's more defined.
Exactly. But there's some situations where, let's say in the workplace or in a completely new role,
Right.
you're just stepping into like absolutely like the absolute unknown. So there's only so much that you can do. But like you said, I think I love the fact that you can infuse that in your lifestyle on a constant in terms of the books you're reading, the things you're consuming, so that when you're then faced with these situations that seemingly look bigger or better than you, it's not that you're starting from scratch to then reach that standard. It's kind of like, I already, there are things I've done before, so it wouldn't feel like I'm a complete imposter. Maybe it might just feel like there's a couple of things I can do better at. There are a couple of things I can intensify more based on what I'm now exposed to, which, I mean, I don't think you ever want to step into a space where you're like, absolutely, I fit into this and I'm super comfortable. So it wouldn't be the imposter feeling anymore. It probably would be more, I just need to grow and rise to this as growth. And this is a new challenge for me. Whereas if you're just leaving yourself to completely be coasting as life does, you then get to a phase where if you're faced with that, it's kind of like, whoa.
But I feel like, I think there are general principles in anything that you can still apply to ready yourself. So like, yes, I acknowledge that entering a new workplace or new thing, there's less defined rules, but even then I think there's still some principles, like, and I think this is what I learned from actually a colleague at my old job, where she was telling me about her dad, who I believe is some like politician type person. And she said that she was always very impressed by how her dad could navigate hosting diplomats and stuff like that with such ease and stuff like that, until she noticed that he doesn't navigate with such ease, whatever. He prepares beforehand. And this is something that, like, you can always prepare for stuff. And I think once you told me that, I go into everything. Like, I mean, I'm going for a coffee chat with someone. I'm preparing. I think the same way, like, in this job context. Yes, you cannot pre-read the job, but you can definitely reach out to people who work in your team and get coffee with them before you even join the company. So you minimize the unknownness by, okay, I have a friendly face here. You can research about the people and learn about, okay, this person used to do this, has a passion for rugby. Okay, let me learn a little fun fact about rugby. These are things that the people who are making you feel insecure, these are things that they have readily that make them feel really comfortable in situations.
Right.
And you
so
can
do your homework.
Go above and beyond. Like, yes, I know you got the job. You did get the job. Go above.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. So do you feel like now that you have that strategy, you've reduced how much of the imposterness you feel?
Exactly. I've not felt imposter syndrome since then. And I've entered a new job that
And you've got into higher spaces.
Yes.
Right.
Because I just learned that general rule. Like, I think you can largely prevent it. Anything, just over prepare.
So looking back on that specific situation when you first saw your interns, what do you think you could have done?
I think what I could have done, and what I know from now, one of the girls I was particularly impressed by, I became friends with her afterwards. I just learned, she was like, girl, I looked up these people beforehand. And because she dominated that. Like, I have, to this day, I've not seen someone do something so masterful.
Wow.
Like, she dominated that room. She was like, she was connecting with the people. She found like there's a mutual friend, XYZ, like stuff like that through research. She said that she went on LinkedIn for one of the vice presidents or whatever, and she found that there was a mutual who went to this similar school. Through her boyfriend, she then found a connection with that person and then like was talking. Like, she prepped.
Right.
Because, and you know why? She prepped because she had done an internship the year before where she was the one crying.
Right. And so she said, it's not going to be me again.
She's the one crying, and she didn't end up getting the full-time job. Right, so she really got burned. And so now when she's in this, she's over delivering because she doesn't want that. And so what I'm trying to tell people is, instead of you first experiencing that hurt, how about you just learn from someone else's experiences and learn to over deliver as a lifestyle. It's just who you are.
Yeah. Especially in the world of under delivering that we're in, where people promise and
let's
feel
talk
off.
about it. Right? Be that person who goes above and beyond. You won't feel. Why would you feel imposter syndrome if you're doing crazy stuff like that?
Yeah, nothing. No, what can they say? Yeah. Who wants to say anything? That is so true. Wow. And like that shows, like, in terms of networking as well, like what the example you just gave with the masterful lady.
Yeah.
Have you had to grow in that skill in terms of
Yes.
helping yourself fit in better?
Yes.
Or is it just something that you just let nature
Oh my goodness, no.
do its work?
And also my natural disposition is not extroversion. It is not.
Okay.
No.
Really? You'd rather be at home?
Really? Sorry, do I give up extroversion?
No, but I don't think anybody, or I wouldn't look at you now and think, oh, Melody's like introverted.
That's so funny.
Do you know what I mean? Like if I feel like you're introvert, I feel like you're probably doing something else.
Girl, this shows I'm doing my job well.
Okay, so you're putting on the face properly.
Putting it on every day. I put it on.
Put it on.
Yeah. So networking is something that I first had to be convinced of, evangelized about.
Okay.
Because I think as an introvert, you're like, oh, no, keep it small, keep it cute. But I realized that when it comes to the gap between here and where you want to be, someone can jump that very quickly because of who they know. So I had to be sold on just how important it is for me to start engaging in it properly. And then I engage in it in the way that I do everything else, which is very systematically and like properly.
Okay.
So I take my networking very, I have a spreadsheet.
A spreadsheet?
I have a spreadsheet of like the names of people, like how the conversation went or facts about them, the last time I touched base with them.
Oh, wow.
Everything's systematic.
No.
The last time I touched base with them, so that I can go every quarter and think, okay, cool, this person, I need to check in with them or whatever. If you find that something is good for you and can really change your life, I just do it properly. So yeah, networking is something that has been really amazing for me. One example that I can give, one of my closest mentors now, really random. How did I meet him? Oh, a random webinar I joined in COVID about like investment banking, and he was one of the speakers. Okay. Mind you, he operates this webinar was actually like South America based, totally not in our world. Okay. But yeah, he was amazing, whatever. Shot him a little message afterwards, be like, oh, thank you so much for this, I'm aspiring investment banker, He replied. And yeah, we check in, I think maybe 2 or 3 times a year. He really helped me in terms of improving my CV before getting the job. And now we touch base. He also works in venture capital as well. Okay. So he's also helped me with like finding startups. A startup that we invested in, he helped me find. So yeah, that's one example of how networking has really helped me. But yeah, I think if you are someone like me who maybe struggles with that, you can break it down. It's not, you don't have to leave the world of networking to the extroverts. You know, we can have some fun too. Yeah. And yeah, you can make it work for yourself.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love the approaching and the system. I don't know about, I wouldn't do the systematic stuff, but most people wouldn't. But I love Melody does abnormal things. But I think it's so important. I think it's great for not having an excuse, even if it doesn't come naturally to you. Yes. Like I wouldn't consider myself an introvert. Right. But if I did, then these are the tips I should be holding on to to help me. Because like you said, I think once you know that it's good for you and you know that there's going to be productive results out of this, then I mean, like, why are you saying you can't?
And I think this is the thing about the growth mindset and identity. Like, I think sometimes people put themselves in identities that do not serve them.
And you don't have to be stuck in it.
Yeah. And like they just sort of block you off. Oh, this sort of job is meant for this sort of person, XYZ. Look, you can become like, why? Whatever. Yeah. Why have you let a word that some people categorized and then cap you or whatever? Like, yeah, it's 2024.
Yeah. Absolutely. Love it. And I think being that person, did you reach out on LinkedIn, by the way? Or
to the mentor?
Yeah. I think be that person that reaches out to people on LinkedIn. Yep. I'm that kind of girl. I always say this story. When I first got, I was trying to get into the industry back then. Pharmacy industry, pharmaceutical industry. Okay, nice. And one of the first, because it's quite a competitive industry to put your foot in. So I got an interview with this, and I remember messaging every Tom, Dick, and Harry at this company. And you'd be surprised how many people are so willing to like talk to you or to reply. Like people are so willing to be helpful because I guess they've been there, done that, and they want to be helped. So like if you, again, going back to creating your virtual bubble as well, that could be a way to reach out to people that are seemingly so far away from you if you don't have people around that you can talk to or like ask questions. I think asking questions has been the most helpful skill I've ever had to engage in career-wise as a person. You know, just ask questions and people would, I mean, you decipher what you want to take and leave out of it, but approach people, and we have the like avenues to do so. grow.
Yeah.
And when you see, I think seeing is so important in terms of like seeing where you want to be in terms of like whether that's the next career, the next role.
Right.
I think when you're able to visualize that better, it helps me better to be able to work towards it. So having people to speak to and then know like their day in the life, what does that look like? You know, what does their CV look like? Then you realize that actually I have work to do, because sometimes it looks like you've done all the work, or like there's not much I can do. It's just by luck and chance if it comes to me. No, there are other things that you can be doing to whether you're better your CV. Like for me recently, I found out that there's a skill called storytelling. Like I just thought people are just good at storytelling, but now I know that it's a skill that I want to develop in based on seeing and speaking to other people. And I know that that's like my work in progress based on where I want to be. But if I didn't ask questions, if I didn't speak to people or reach out, I would be like, these people are just better at telling stories than me, or negotiating. Like that's a skill.
And I think to your point about maybe even LinkedIn building a network, seeing people who are where you're trying to go, it also helps to break the steps in the middle. So there's you here and you in the future. In terms of how exactly you get there, that might be a bit hazy. And I think when people leave that gap hazy is sort of when it feels too lofty a goal. It's like,
I get you.
How am I going to get there and whatever? But by engaging with the people who've got there, a few people ideally, then you have, okay, I can do this route, or I can also do this route. It's not over for me yet. There are XYZ. It makes it more real. This is my immediate next step, and so on and so forth.
I love that. So we're talking about how I think it's maybe sounding like it comes easy, like these whole themes of getting better and growing. So let's talk about your challenges.
Okay.
Is there any like challenging experience that has like profoundly shaped you so far? Anything that was like, well. I mean, maybe not that many woes, but you get the gist. Like something that an experience that you feel like has kind of shaped your
I think
trajectory.
I can maybe answer that in two ways.
Okay.
I think, maybe just more on experience.
Okay.
On experiences that shaped me. There was this one person I met at LSE. She was a few years above me, and she said something that just literally spun me. So, okay, I was applying. So once I got into uni, I was like, cool, what job am I going to do? And I initially wanted to apply to a certain division within the bank.
Okay.
That seemed very aligned to me in terms of like personality traits or whatever. But not that competitive or anything like that, and doesn't compensate as well. But, I liked it. I thought it was good.
Yeah.
And I was telling her about it. I was like, I think I might apply to this or whatever. And she, I'll never forget, she sent me this audio. And she was like, Melody, what are you doing?
Oh.
You study economics at the LSE. You are going for the top job. You are going for the most competitive job. Do not apply for that.
Wow.
I remember I was like, this aligns with me as a person. Like, what?
This is where I fit.
Right? But in that, she was like, but you can grow to become the person, right? And honestly, I owe her so much, because otherwise I would have been on a completely different trajectory. And there was an experience 2 years later with someone who, he has a really funny story, but he basically he dropped out of Oxford and he started advising like the UK government on Commonwealth nations and investing in those businesses there or whatever. And I remember just asking him sorry, how do you decide to, he was 23 at the time when he started. I was like, how do you just wake up and decide to do that? And he said the words, the audacity of youth. I was like, what? He was like, when you're young, you can be audacious. And you should really lean into
embrace that.
Because if you flop, people are, well, it's a 23-year-old, they're so cute or whatever, right? Of course they were going to. You have time to recover as well. And I married those two together because I think both of them taught me to go above and beyond, really try. Yes, you think you can do this, but what do you think you can't do? And how do you go for that?
If you've reached this point in the video, then you are a champion. You're committed to building a better version of yourself, and you invest in the time and seeking the knowledge required to do so. And I've got just the right tool to accompany you on this journey of becoming better. And that's none other than the Better Days Journal, a journal that was created with you and your best days in mind. Each entry offers the opportunity for growth, for reflection, for gratitude, and everything you need to maximize a single day. In its pages, you find prompts that help you pause and learn from the lessons of each day. Remember, it's in how we spend each day that creates the future we desire. So here's to better days. Here's to building your better you, one reflection at a time. You can grab your copy at BYBYPodcast.com or any of the links linked in the description box below.
For me, I didn't think I could go for the most competitive job. Let me just settle for something that fits me and it's decent. And I would never dream of doing something as crazy as that guy. I think those two experiences that have shaped me and that I probably revisit every month.
Wow.
I think about them and I'm like anytime I'm like, let me just, yeah, it's okay. I
think about that.
The audacity of youth, going for more. Yeah.
Because you would, I mean, the Bible says, strength of a man is in his youth, paraphrasing, but basically saying that, like it's now, like it's in your youthful age that you have the strength to do these things.
Exactly.
Like we can hope for later, but later comes with later responsibilities that you can't predict. Firstly, whether that's kids or family or aging parents or having to be in a particular place, it is like now, you know. And when I say now, obviously I don't want to put an age to it or anything. It's just where you are now is the youngest that you would ever be.
Exactly.
You know, so this is the most audacious that you can be, not tomorrow. No. So going for that and just launching yourself into it. I was telling you about my job I took last year. One of the reasons I didn't want to take it was because I was like, I don't know if I'm able to like work in that capacity. But now looking back a year ago, like when you were then grown and rise to the occasion, you're like, I could done that.
Oh my goodness.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think actually something that I'm really grateful for in the way that life has taken me is being exposed to people in high places or whatever, however you want to define that. Because then you realize that they're
just normal people. Like the people that sit at the table are actually not.
It's a scam. We're all being scammed. Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
Like they still, like, I think one of my favorite quotes, I might be saying it wrong, but it's like the rich still cry or something like that. Where it's basically like anyone that you think is distant from you, lives in a different world, we are still united by the human experience. They still cry, they still bleed, all this kind of stuff. They still get embarrassed. They still make mistakes. So anyone that you think is somewhere they want to be, they're a perfect human. It literally, that's not it. Yeah. They still trip on the pavement when the things are on you. But they are, human experience is a great equalizer. So once you observe that, you're like, oh, okay, I could probably also do something crazy, right?
That is so key. Like, and I think it helps people to realize, like you said, that it's not super up there. Like, obviously, it takes work and stuff to get there, but it's really just the people that were audacious enough and willing enough to put in a certain level of work. That we're able to sit at these tables that you're seemingly thinking it's
not a different breed of human. It's not a different type. There's nothing innate. There's nothing fixed. It's just they did actions that took them there.
Yeah, they did the work.
You could also hopefully do actions that take you there.
That's so interesting. So in relation to like personal growth and getting better, I know obviously you work in finance, so you're exposed to money more than like, I guess, the other job roles. But how has that like changed your perspective with money versus when you were out with finance, say when you were in school or like uni? I mean, uni probably sort of like, you know, but how's your relationship with money evolved over the years?
Well, I think a familiarity with financial products on the basis, and I mentioned that to talk about investing. I think, in general, I'm probably a bit more comfortable than other people when it comes to investing. And I think people tend to come to me for not financial advice. But you know, for basic lessons on how they should deal with their money to grow their money. So I think that's been an advantage. Being on the inside, seeing how it works.
And do you apply it to yourself, you think? Or do you think, because I know some people say, people that work in finance do the work, but like their financial vibe is not matching up.
It's very possible. Especially I think in the job that I was in, where you give 25, 26-year-olds a stupid amount of money, and they've not shaped as people, I guess. And so that it all gets squandered. So I think maybe the point that you're getting is that people can earn the amounts and still live
Spend it,
paycheck to paycheck. Very possible. So I think, I don't think the job it didn't teach me to save.
Okay.
No. I think my earlier experiences in life did teach me to save, but I'm saying the job did help me to be familiar with financial products that can grow the savings, let's say.
Yeah.
And then now in my new job, which is investing in a much riskier asset, like startups, I am a lot more comfortable with now, instead of just the basic stock market, now in things that have a 1% chance of succeeding. So I think it's exposed me to good ways to grow my money. It's exposed me to wealthy people. But I don't think it's taught me to save now.
Has it changed your risk appetite in your personal life?
Yeah, my new job has definitely changed my risk appetite for sure. I'm now, I think I see
more
money.
Risk averse?
No.
Oh, okay.
Less risk averse.
Okay.
What? No, you only make money by spending money, by investing money. So I think two ways. It's made me more interested in putting my money towards something that can either go zero or big. Like, so with more safe investments, the option is just, something that's going to give you 7 to 10%. I'm now more open to things that will either give you 500%
or zero
or nothing.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that. And then I'm also comfortable with taking more bigger risks, whether that is in trying to start a business or, I think in general is how I see life risks. I think even in my spending a little bit more, I think I'm a bit more like, I'm actually okay with putting in a bigger sum of money if it will increase my utility. I think maybe before I got into finance, I think I was probably more like, cautious of like, okay, well, that's a big amount there. Avoid that. But it's like, no, actually, I'm probably more open to exploring larger amounts to see, what is the return on this advance?
Okay.
Is this thing that I'm going to spend be a better quality experience, a better quality product?
Okay, that's interesting. What's your top money tip in your 20s that you've learned?
Like budgeting and stuff like that, funny enough, I actually started that when I was 15, 16. I would watch these... cash stuffing? No. Oh my goodness. Okay. So it's like a realm of budgeting. Okay. Where people budget with, so in the US, it's very US, they budget with their cash. So they print their entire income in cash.
And
their envelopes.
Pop in envelopes.
Exactly.
Right.
So my first thing was basic budgeting and then cash stuffing.
Oh my gosh.
That was 15, 16. So going into uni, I had a budget for uni. Right. So that was fine going into adulthood. I think my biggest tip though for people, I'm not gonna say save money, please save money. I would say for in your 20s, invest aggressively if you can. So obviously, have a nice little emergency fund, as little as you can, ideally, especially if that's just gonna be in a savings account. Yeah. The rest of it, ideally, put in the markets. You have the time to weather any ups and downs. Yeah. So put that to growing wealth when you have time on your hand in terms of compounding. Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest tip that would apply to the largest group of people.
And did you learn that outside of finance or?
Yeah.
Okay. So you were already into this money thing even beforehand. Yeah. Okay.
I was a weird 16-year-old.
But I think that's so important because I think some people assume that, in a certain career, it helps you better earning more helps. Obviously, earning more is good. Do you get what I mean? But I think there's a certain how do I put it? There's certain building blocks that you have to have in place. I knew before I started working full time from uni that there were certain things I had to learn about money before that money entered my account. Because the minute it does, it's gone. So there are things I was watching so much. I was consuming so much content as to how I wanted to handle my money and my goals for my money before I received the money. So I think it's so important for people to take that responsibility. I know people say, they don't teach you these at school. And I agree.
There are lots of things they don't teach you in school.
Yeah, there are lots of things they don't teach you at school. So I think it's so important that you take personal responsibility with money, especially when we're thinking about being better. Right. Because there's only so much you can be better without leverage.
Right.
You get what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And that's money will change
everything.
Can change a lot, right? Yeah. Even if you think about just having options and stuff like that, let's say two people decide to start a business at 25 and they've both been working for maybe 3-4 years or whatever. The person who was good at the money that now has saved up comfortably, 10K, whatever, to put into that business. Meanwhile, you have saved very little. You're going to end up in different places, just factually. The person can take bigger risks. They can go bigger on advertising or whatever. Money is, I don't think, it's not trivial. And I really resent like the narrative about like, oh, you're young, like spend or whatever. Like, so funny enough, like even now that I do a lot of traveling, you'll know that the year before,
yes, you had a no spend year.
I had a no spend year in travel. So for context, low spends, no spends, I think everyone should look into it. It's great. You pick a category of life to either not spending in vacation, traveling. Obviously, I had to pay for the bus and the tube.
But like actually traveling.
Exactly. And I did it because, well, I love challenges. I love just random challenges that shape your character and stuff like that. So for me, it was about self-control. So this was at a time when obviously I was, you know, out of uni, making a lot of money. Literally, all people in my work did was travel. Like every month, they're somewhere.
It's like, Melody, where are you going this month?
Nowhere. Exactly. And literally, no, people were like, why would you, like, literally people were like, why would you do that? Like, you're young. This is time to be traveling.
And
before
you have the money.
Exactly. I was like, I knew what I was doing in terms of like building self-control and being like, I know you can spend. I'm telling you not to spend. So yeah, I did that no spend. And I think linking this back to like finances or whatever, and what I was saying about resenting this notion about like in your 20s, you must be a big spender and indulge or whatever. Build wealth. Like you need money to build other things. Like if traveling, obviously know what adds utility for you.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So for me, it's not like, yeah, traveling is nice and all, but I don't need to. Yeah. That's not like the thing that's going to make me happy in life. So if you can cut back on certain things and see that every pound that, or dollar or whatever currency that you're saving is going to something else. I think Graham Staffin, he always says this, that because he lived a very like frugal few years, right? Where he like didn't buy like coffee outside, like £3 coffee, whatever. But he saw it as, look, the £3 today will become £20 in a few years if I put it in the markets. So he valued that more. So yeah, I think it's important for young people to like think about money in that way. Not how much money is in your account today. Yeah. What could it be at a time when it probably means more than you buying a Starbucks today. Yeah. You're not going to build wealth by saving on Starbucks. I just want to say that. But that mindset.
Yeah. That is so key because I think it's so in going back to the audacious of your youth, like it's so, it can be taken the other way where it's like, it's live for now, live for now. But it's like, we're going to get to 60, you know,
tomorrow
by
will
God's
come
grace.
By God's grace.
Yes. So it's like, how are you planning for that? And I love the fact of options. I'm going to come and ask you what wealth means for you. But for me, when I think about that, I'm thinking about options. I'm thinking about the freedom to choose. And when you're thinking about this future life as well, where you are now, like, are you happy doing that for the next 50, 60 years if you're working a full-time job, for example?
Word.
Or like being stuck in a place where you don't really have much leverage of your time or your options. So thinking about the future is so important, even if it doesn't seem like the future is anywhere close to you now as young people. And I think even without with the money talk, in being better, it's kind of like, why some people think, why do I have to, I don't need to be any wiser now. I don't need to be any more bookworm now or whatever. But it's like, try and set your eyes on the things above. Yeah. Like, not literally by the scripture, but like set your eyes on things later. Like there's a later you. Like sometimes when I think about, I don't really enjoy reading. I never really did over the years, but I knew that for the future me or the me that I want to be when I'm out, she better read. She better read. Like I would want my kids to read. Like, so what examples am I gonna show them if I don't do that? So having that foresight, I think is so important, and it applies in the money situation as well, so that you're not just in the now. Like the now is important, but like you don't need all the money now. You don't need all of that now.
And I wonder, like, I don't know if I've seen much conversation about this online, but I think people in our stage of life not looking far enough into the future. And I kind of want to link this to what we were talking about, like ambition dwindling. What if the issue was just that the goal was too short term?
That is so
And I think this is something that, like, I was speaking to my friend about this. We sort of see 30 as like your life is like you're old and elderly.
But it's like there's 40, 50.
Exactly. But I think it's because
we don't think about it.
Yeah.
That is so true.
It's like too big. So what if, I don't know. I think we need more conversations about like prolonging the vision. And it's not about even money, fitness, anything. It's not about, okay, I want the dream body in 6 months' time in the end of the year. I want to be a millionaire in 5 years' time. extend it.
Think about your lifestyle.
Extend it, exactly. Like, you will live longer. And I think it's important for two reasons. One, just longevity of your vision so that you don't, like we said, go complacent or disillusioned. But two things, I think it might also change the road you take. Like, if your goal is, okay, fitness is an easy one to use. If your goal is long-term health, you train in a different way than if your goal is
short-term
Greek god body in 6 months.
Yeah.
So
you probably won't do surgery as well.
Yeah.
No, but really, if you actually thought about because the consequences, if you actually were worried about what you would be in a few years' time.
No.
No, but I think that is such a great perspective.
No.
Because when we actually think about consequences long term.
Steroids too.
Do you get what I mean? Like, there are certain decisions that you probably will not make.
Yeah.
But if you're only thinking about what I'm going to look like, what I'm going to feel like, what I'm going to be like in like 5-10 years, and that's where it stops, you actually make different decisions.
And then you don't want to get to a place where it's like, and let's even bring this back to money, where people it might be harder to visualize. Let's say, okay, cool, I need to make the most amount of money in 3 years' time, whatever. There are certain routes that take you there. Some routes don't. Okay, use real examples of maybe some successful startups or whatever. Revolut, right? All these neobanks. The funny thing about these companies is they only started making profit like a couple years ago. They've been running for like 10 years, let's say. So if you wanted to be a millionaire in 3 years, Revolut, Monzo was probably not the route for you, right? But in the long term, it might be. In 3 years, then you start seeing some of the stuff that we see online. Social media, marketing agents, all these like sort of get rich quick schemes, the Forex stuff, all this kind of stuff. That way of making money can take you for a little bit, but it doesn't take you further. And then you might realize that when you reach 30 and you look back in your life and you're like, okay, who did I become in the process of hitting that goal?
Wow.
Maybe you don't like that person. Maybe that kind of person will not serve you for being a 40-year-old, being a 50-year-old because of the actions that you took. So I do think the duration of your goal does change the actions you take, and both of them change the type of person you become. So I don't know. I feel like people in our phase of life, we need more conversation about extending the vision a little bit.
That is so good. Like, I absolutely, because even me, when I think about life, like, how much have I actually thought? Like, unless you're thinking about your pension plan and stuff, obviously I'm thinking about my retirement plan, but out with just the typical, like, how much have you actually thought about your life in your 40s? In your, like, it's not talked about.
Like, do I want to be the lovely auntie that all the like kids want to come and talk to?
Do you know what I mean?
If I do, what kind of life? Do
I need to? What kind of life do I want to?
Where am I living? Who am I partnered with?
Oh,
what kind of like, job experience have I had?
That is so real. That is really good.
Do I volunteer? Like let's just use that topic, right? Especially anyone who's like, oh, I really want to make money, be rich or whatever. If the kind of person that you want to become is like a mentor, like, you know, we all love that figure of like that older person who's just such a mentor figure. Maybe you want to have given outside of yourself, right? Maybe it wasn't always about making money. Maybe you have spent energy on something charitable or whatever. You need to fit that into your goal. Can you be a billionaire and also doing that? I don't know. Maybe you can. But like, it's thinking about all of those sort of things. I think it's big.
Wow. That is so good. Expand your vision length.
Yeah.
I love it. That had to be like one of the things I'm taking away from today for sure. But how do you maintain a sense of balance in terms of all of this, doing all these things and like avoiding burnout? Do you burn out?
Oh yeah, I have before. I think, well, being systematic. It works.
Yeah.
But as long as you just make the system conducive for balance.
I love a good system. Because it's like when you build systems, you don't have to think about it.
So good. We're not doing goals in 2025. We're doing systems. So I think for me, like, so spirituality, my faith, big tenet, and making sure that I put in energy towards those things as well. Yeah, really, really important. I think this whole conversation around that and people taking those sort of things as like back burner things that just sort of work. No. I'm a big, one of my favorite quotes. Actually, I think it was, so we go to the same church. I think our pastor once said it, and it must have been like 15 years ago or something like that.
Oh my God.
Where he drew this graphic. And basically the concept was like, if you're not going up, you are falling down. Like this concept of like stagnancy, plateau, I don't know if it exists really. Like you're like, oh, I feel like I'm stuck. I think
you're going in the opposite direction. There's only 2 ways to go.
There's actually only 2 ways. And yeah, to link that to my point, I think in spirituality, the things that we might not put so much energy to, it's like, if you are not inputting into that, you are not growing in that, just period. So I try to be really diligent with the things that I know are good for my faith and putting the energy into that. And that has its time, that has a schedule. Same with health.
Okay.
Like,
I was going to go to that actually.
Okay. Yeah. So with that, like having, okay, what frequency am I working out or whatever? What type of workouts am I doing? Linking back to the longer term goals or whatever, nutrition, stuff like that. And I think like having your core tenets of life, I would say, and those, or pillars, let's say. And
building systems in them.
Exactly. And making sure that all the systems that feed into those things are well watered, I think lead to a balanced life. And going to a point about how a system helps you not to think about it is ideally, because day-to-day life, like, you know, I think especially at this time of the year, you're thinking about, okay, I want to hit this, and this. But there is the mundane Monday, right? The Tuesday that happens. Yeah. The beauty of life is if you have a system that you can go, your mundane Mondays and your boring Tuesdays still feed into those goals you're trying to achieve. So I think that's how I achieve balance with systems and making sure that the systems apply to the core things that matter to me. I think in times in life where I felt like something's missing, something's gone a bit off skew, is when a pillar of my life has slipped in some way. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I love that. Again, I think it reminds me of a lesson or a saying I came across recently, that in as much as about the big goals and whatnot, it's really down to your daily habits that accumulate to these results that you're looking for. So it's not just the one-off, and back to consistency and compounding interest in even your habits. It's the daily habits that produce results. So if you are not going to infuse it, if it's just going to be a goal and there's no system in place for you to apply that daily, then there will be no results, or the results will be super diluted.
It's a wish list.
She said it. Amazing. We can go on and on, but like, what's your favorite, I guess, habit health-wise daily? I know you run.
Yeah, so I picked up running.
Okay,
actually, and one of the coolest things I think I did last year.
Okay,
so as a kid, I used to sprint. So I'm more used to like shorter distances. So mentally switching from running for 10 seconds or whatever to running prolonged, like, so 5Ks is sort of where I'm at.
Okay.
Was a journey, and I, was on a plan to learn that. So I think, running for me is really a made activity even easier now, because you also don't need to go to a gym. You can just put some shoes on and run. So running, so core blocks will be any form of activity. So even on the days when I'm not training, whether running or at the gym, going outside at some point for a walk, ideally in the morning.
Okay.
And then other than that, it will be like a few cardio days in the week, and then a few lifting days. Okay. And then hiking is also a new...
Oh, I love a good hike.
Yeah. It's also a new activity for me. So ideally like once a month or 2 times a month or whatever, fitting that in. So I think for me, like a dream week that I had in December, I, was lifting at the start of the week. I did a few runs at a park run on a Saturday, and then went on a hike on a Sunday after church. Okay. That kind of lifestyle feels very active to me, and it doesn't feel too much. Yeah. Like I think when I was younger as a teenager, intense in the gym was nice. But I think in terms of longevity, and consistency, if it can ease into your life and make you feel good and energized and lead into other things, best.
And I think making it enjoyable as well is quite important. I enjoy going to the gym, but I find I enjoy being outside more sometimes. So the other way, what I see here is options. Like when people say, "Oh, I just hate the gym. I don't like the gym. I don't like lifting." Like the other way is like just be active in one way or the other.
Yeah,
like
how are you fitting it in?
Well, for me, I have systems.
Yeah, slay.
So I have set days. So based on what I usually have meetings after work or whatnot. So the days I know that are longer, I take it out and then I put it in. I'm a morning gym person. I don't know. Nice. Are you?
Yes.
My husband's not. So, but I love going in the morning. Yeah. So and I have my set days. So on the set days, I don't know. Your mind is just like, today's the like weight training day or gym day. And then for those set days, I have what I'm doing on each day. So I know like Monday, for example, is leg day.
So you do not go into the
Always.
day thinking, what am I to do?
No, never.
Exactly.
I used to do that before, and then I would not do it. Or I'll do it, like, I'll go super hard for 1 week, and then the next week I'm not. And even on the days where, like, I might miss it, like, I'm a bit more comfortable in it now because I kind of know, like, my next round is coming up. I know how to, like, change it over in the week. So gym a couple of times, 4 times a week. Nice. And then I try and go for a walk during lunch as well. So on the days that I'm not exactly in the gym, like my rest days, I'm outside. Yeah. I only infused walking last year. Nice. I think it was during fasting when I was trying to go on a prayer walk and stuff. But I just thought, this is so like refreshing. Like when you come back to work, you just feel so stuffy. So activity in some way or the other can happen. Yeah. And it can be like good for you, you know? And infusing it in some way. So on Saturday, I'm looking for a way to bring back like badminton to my schedule or something.
So the social aspect as well.
Yeah. I think more for the long term. I subconsciously maybe made that decision without thinking about it. But like more for a long term, like there are days where maybe I might not have time for the gym anymore, you know, maybe when they're kids or whatever, or everything in the middle. But how can I still maintain some sort of active lifestyle with just nature? And I think that's so key. But we can keep talking.
Oh gosh.
But I think it's been long enough. Give us one last, when you think of building your better you, what's your why? Like, do you have a set why, or do you just think it's something that is just melody?
What is my why? Yeah, no, I don't think there is a set why. I think it's just more of the greater concept of like, I want to maximize. I want to be the best that I can be. Yeah. If I'm here now in any stage of life that I'm in, how do I be the best in it? Yeah. And I think that's important when you're thinking about, I think it's sometimes easy for us to think the grass is always greener. Like, okay, when I hit this, when I X, Y, then life will be great. And it's like, actually just today, water your grass here today, and make it better. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that. I think for me, it's just more like, I don't want to leave this earth and feel like I wasn't like at my best. Yeah. If that makes sense. Like, obviously I think with each day, there's always going to be more that you can do. But like at that phase in your life where you go to the pearly gates, like, would you say confidently that I've done...
Yeah, that you redeemed the days. Like, there wasn't...
Absolutely.
You weren't wasteful, or you didn't take for granted the fact that you had breath today.
Yeah, absolutely.
You embraced it and you said, thank you, Lord, for the day. I will do the best that I can from what I understand.
Absolutely. And I think for me as well, raising the next generation or your siblings to be better, I think just setting the just keeping the standard set for me so that they have a higher standard to follow. You know, I think it's so important. If not, there's nothing for them to follow. Well, thank you so much. It's been a lovely hour or more, I'm sure. But I hope you guys were able to take out a thing or two from this conversation. Where can we find you, Melody, if we wanted to connect with you more?
Yeah, you can find me on my YouTube, Musing with Melody.
Where you talk about more hot takes.
Yeah. I like to discuss like bigger philosophical topics and just things that are on my mind. You can find me there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you guys.
And until next time, see you guys later.
Bye.
Woohoo! Thank you.
Well done.
And that's a wrap on today's conversation. Take a moment to reflect. What's one small move you can make today towards a better you? If you love this episode, it would mean so much if you hit the subscribe button, left a review, or shared it with someone you care about. Until the next episode, keep building, keep growing.